Next, on Currents News, another new vaccine could be on the way in just weeks. The drug maker Moderna announcing it's almost 95% effective. Then, American bishops are meeting virtually this year because of the pandemic, but that's not stopping them from tackling huge issues. We'll break it all down. Plus, Cardinal Timothy Dolan pays a visit to hard-hit Staten Island to celebrate Mass and offer a message of encouragement and thanks. And the Diocese of Brooklyn vows to keep its Catholic schools open even if the city's public schools shut their doors. The news starts right now. Good evening, I'm Christine Persichetti. As coronavirus cases continue to climb around the country, a second drug maker has now announced that its vaccine is nearly 95% effective, making it the second frontrunner in the global race to defeat the deadly virus. Daryl Forges has the latest.
As coronavirus rages on across the U.S., some good news on the vaccine front. Moderna says its vaccine is more than 94% effective, according to early data.
It's one of the greatest moments of my life and my career. It is absolutely amazing to me to be able to develop this vaccine and see the ability to prevent symptomatic disease with such high efficacy.
The Moderna vaccine trials show that out of 15,000 people who received the vaccine, only 5 got sick with the virus. This is the second vaccine to now be more than 90% effective. The first, Pfizer.
I think this is a really strong step forward to where we want to be about getting control of this outbreak.
As the hope for a vaccine looks brighter by the day, the number of new daily COVID cases continues to rise across the country, so bad that some states are reinstating restrictions.
We are in the worst moment of this pandemic to date. The situation has never been more dire. We are at the precipice and we need to take some action.
The virus is not only taking its toll on adults. The American Academy of Pediatrics and the Children's Hospital Association says that more than 1 million children have contracted coronavirus. Daryl Forges, Currents News.
New York City students were able to go to classes Monday, despite warnings from Mayor Bill de Blasio that schools could close if the city's infection rate hit 3%. Right now, it's 2.77. If the city does reach that milestone, the Diocese of Brooklyn is saying Catholic schools won't shut their doors. Superintendent of Schools Thomas Chadzuko saying all 69 schools will continue to provide in-person learning despite the Department of Education's plan.
And that we really want the children in the classrooms. We really want the children to have ongoing education. They're all adjusting really very well since September 9th. And this confusion is just adding to the stresses of both the parents, the children, and our faculty. For us, as we follow our metrics, our reporting cases are minimal compared to what we're looking at the larger.
Diocesan schools have successfully operated for more than 2 months with strict adherence to both the city and state's coronavirus requirements. The New York Archdiocese is demanding the city pay for testing in Catholic schools in yellow zones. According to a statement by the Archdiocese's lawyer, the Department of Education proposed testing kits for Catholic schools to buy and administer, but is offering no funding or personnel. The DOE counters that they are working with the Archdiocese on a testing program that includes free kits by the city. The costs of testing has been a big concern in the Diocese of Brooklyn. When Our Lady Queen of Martyrs Catholic Academy in Forest Hills, Queens opened in late October, they estimated the cost of testing for their school to be around $2,500 per week.
Many of us are already functioning at a deficit budget this year because of all the provisions we needed to put in place. So we're very, very cautious about how that's going to impact us in the long run.
The school has already spent tens of thousands this year on safety protocols. Staten Island has been hard hit by the pandemic. They currently have the highest infection rate in the city. But despite the spike, worshipers came out to celebrate Mass with Cardinal Timothy Dolan on Sunday. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has more from St. Clair's Church on Staten Island.
Please put your wrist in the ring.
Despite a pandemic, St. Clair's Church on Staten Island was packed Saturday. As packed as it could be. Parishioners welcomed Cardinal Dolan. The head of the New York Archdiocese came for a few reasons. The first, to encourage parishioners to continue to practice their faith safely and commend the work they've already done to stop the spread of COVID-19.
Staten Island is kind of experiencing an uptick in the virus, and I just want to thank them for all the good work that they've done of precaution and looking out for one another and masks and encourage them to keep it up.
Staten Island currently has the highest infection rate in New York City. Several areas on the island soaring above a 3% positivity rate. And COVID-19 has claimed the lives of more than 1,000 residents. Among them, two of the church's beloved priests, including Monsignor Richard Guastella, who served as pastor of St. Clair's, the largest parish in the Archdiocese.
It's kind of a tough couple of months losing Father Richard. You know, that's a driving force to get us out, I think, today.
It's very devastating to us. He's going to be missed terribly.
Yeah.
He was a wonderful, personal man. When he gave you communion, he knew your name.
He knew your name.
Cardinal Dolan officially installed Father Arthur Mastrolia as the new pastor during Saturday night Mass. For many in attendance, it was one of the first times back to church. Cardinal Dolan assured it would take extreme circumstances for the Archdiocese to close churches again.
If we knew that bringing people together in a big group was going to be dangerous to people's health, we'd have to say that we probably shouldn't do it. But boy, that's an extreme measure where we don't want to go.
A relief for those who say faith is what's getting them through.
We have to turn to our faith because it is a scary time. It's all we have sometimes.
We've been through so much, and this is just a reinforcement of our faith and that there is a God up there and he's watching over us.
Meanwhile, the Brooklyn Diocese is asking the Supreme Court to block state restrictions on church capacities, saying it violates religious freedom. On Staten Island, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
The Diocese of Brooklyn is bringing its religious freedom case to the Supreme Court. On Thursday, the diocese filed an emergency application asking the High Court to lift restrictions on mass attendance imposed by Governor Cuomo. This after two lower courts ruled in favor of Cuomo. In recent months, the Supreme Court has ruled against churches, but now that conservative Amy Coney Barrett is on the court, the outcome may be different this time. A ruling is expected in the next week or so. Meanwhile, a few hours after the filing, Justice Samuel Alito spoke out about COVID restrictions while addressing the Conservative Federalist Society.
The pandemic has resulted in previously unimaginable restrictions on individual liberty. It pains me to say this, but in certain quarters, religious liberty is fast becoming a disfavored right.
Justice Alito said he wasn't diminishing the severity of the virus threat to public health or whether the restrictions represent good public policy, but he did sound an alarm, saying they shouldn't become a recurring feature after the pandemic has passed. While the pandemic has sparked debate about the government's impact on religious gatherings, some new research shows it's been on the rise even before the virus started to spread. In a new report, the Pew Research Center found 56 countries reached high levels of restrictions on religious freedom in 2018. The Middle East and North Africa continued to have a lot of government limits, but Asia had the largest increase. 31 countries in the Asia-Pacific region witnessed government use of force related to religion. The United States Conference of Catholic Bishops is holding their annual November meeting virtually this year, using a new and innovative way to gather because of the ongoing pandemic. It comes just 6 days after the release of the Vatican's report on Theodore McCarrick. All this as the country is still grappling with a highly contested presidential election. Currents News' Emily Druby has more.
In light of the Holy See's report on Theodore McCarrick, we again want to express our deep sorrow and pray that they might find healing and hope.
Just 6 days after the release of the much-anticipated McCarrick report, Archbishop Jose Gomez used his first presidential address at the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops to speak to abuse survivors.
Let us also renew our commitment today to protecting children and vulnerable adults and to eliminate the scourge of abuse from the Church.
The Fall General Assembly is being held virtually for the first time, and the bishops are making sure they address the report. McCarrick, who was laicized last year, at one time led dioceses in both New Jersey and Washington, D.C.
The tragic outcome was not the result of a single failure, but rather resulted from multiple failures across many years.
During their last gathering in November of 2019, some bishops complained of the report's delay. In the wake of the report release, soon-to-be Cardinal Archbishop Wilton Gregory of Washington, D.C. called for transparency and the need for accountability. The election pandemic, racial equality, and abortion were also covered during the first 2 days of meetings.
How could the response be more effective? What the Holy Father suggests is moving from seeing someone as a neighbor to viewing them as a brother or sister.
Archbishop Christophe Pierre, the Vatican's ambassador to the U.S., adding, "We must build fraternity through love," asking people to imitate the Good Samaritan. Also addressing pandemic-related problems facing many parishioners and churches, from loss of livelihood to loss of loved ones.
We see so many signs of despair throughout our society. People are losing hope.
A high point, both Archbishop Pierre and Archbishop Gomez mentioning Blessed Michael McGivney, an American priest and founder of the Knights of Columbus, who was beatified in early November, calling him a great evangelizer, a crucial church ministry. Day 2 of the General Assembly will continue on Tuesday. Emily Druby, Currents News.
The McCarrick report released by the Vatican last week also looked at the influence McCarrick possibly had on John Paul II, noting that the now sainted pontiff made the decision to elevate McCarrick to archbishop and later to cardinal because of incomplete or inaccurate information and because McCarrick strongly denied the allegations made against him. George Weigel, a noted John Paul II biographer, spoke out in defense of the then Pope.
The report makes very clear that he brazenly lied to John Paul II in the letter he sent after some cautions were raised about his appointment to Washington. Pathological liars deceive people, including saints.
George Weigel went on to say that once credible evidence surfaced in the Archdiocese of New York, it immediately was sent to Rome. There's a lot more news headed your way. Joe Biden, the projected winner of the 2020 election, says he'll raise the cap on the number of refugees his administration would allow into the country. This as Pope Francis prays for the world's most disenfranchised with a special mass honoring the World Day of the Poor. And the Holy Father is also praying for the people of the Philippines in the wake of a deadly typhoon that's decimating parts of the country. President Trump's attorney, Rudy Giuliani, says the presidential election will be overturned, claiming to have evidence of corrupted voting machines. Trump's re-election campaign filed several lawsuits contesting the vote count in key states. However, judges have already rejected some of those cases, ruling that their claims of fraud were unfounded. The Electoral College will meet on December 8th to resolve any election-related disputes. Projected winner Joe Biden already making promises for his administration. In an address to the Jesuit Refugee Service, the Catholic promised to raise the refugee cap from 15,000 to 125,000 next year. The Trump administration cut the cap by more than half hours after taking office in 2017 and has consistently lowered the number each fiscal year. The contentious presidential election happening in the middle of a pandemic and as the dark and cold winter looms has been the source of stress and anxiety for many. So how do we deal with it? Mental health expert and co-founder of the Center, A Place of Hope, Dr. Gregory Jantz, joins us now with some advice. And Doctor, the American Psychological Association found that 68% of adults said this year's election was a significant source of stress in their life, up from just 52% in 2016. And it doesn't matter who you are, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, they're all significantly stressed. And Black adults were even more stressed at 71%. You called the election a flashpoint. Talk about that.
Well, we've been going through some plagues And this has been nonstop. So we've had chronic stress now, 6 months going on 7 months. And it looks like this pandemic purgatory that we're in is not ending. And there's all these questions of, well, what's ahead? What's the future really hold? And so this uncertainty over time has increased, well, anxiety levels to record levels. We also know that depression is at all-time highs. We're seeing it. We work with folks who travel from all over to come to go through one of our programs for anxiety and depression. We're seeing the needs are greater than ever before. I'm also alarmed that addiction rates are going up as well.
And it's not just the adults who are feeling anxious or depressed. Children's mental health is also being affected. You say parents can be at fault for that?
Well, what we know is if we're a very anxious household and there's a lot of constant tension, our kids, particularly younger kids, are like a sponge. They absorb all of our anxieties. And so we inadvertently, kind of create some anxiety for them. So I'm saying just be aware of that. We're also particularly concerned about the stress levels for the 12 to 17-year-olds. If it's online school, this is not normal developmental stages. Socially, there's issues. We're seeing online pornography go up in that age group, 12 to 17. So this is an area and an age range of great concern.
Wow. So what are some things we can do to help deal with our anxiety?
Well, I think one of the things is where is your point of focus? And what I mean by that is, what are you doing to practice great self-care? Now, what I want to say is self-care means mental hygiene as well as physical, and I'm going to add spiritual.
The holidays are coming up, and this year they'll look different. Many are dealing with loss because of COVID. Also, there are the restrictions that you talk about, also restrictions on gatherings. Maybe you're not going to be able to see grandma or your cousins. And on top of that, it's oftentimes a time of excessive eating and drinking. So what's a healthy alternative to deal with your emotions this holiday season?
Well, don't do it alone. One of the things that we have found is the more you isolate, the more that feelings of anxiety, and anxiety is very real, it has physical effects. And the more depression rates go up, and the more when we isolate, we tend to turn to self-destructive behaviors. Maybe it's alcohol. So here's the thing, stay connected. Our relationships right now are more important than ever. But don't find another person that's miserable. Come together. I think there's even a place for, support and prayer. There's a place for community, even if it's remote. Let's keep connected with healthy relationships.
That sounds good to me. Dr. Gregory Jantz, mental health expert and co-founder of the Center, A Place of Hope. Thanks for being with us.
Good to be with you today.
And if you'd like to learn more about how to deal with your post-election stress, check out Dr. Jantz's new book, Healing Depression for Life, available on Amazon. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is threatening to sue the Trump administration. Governor Cuomo calling for equal distribution of the government vaccine in a speech at the Riverside Church in Manhattan on Sunday.
If the Trump administration does not change this plan and does not provide an equitable vaccine process, we will enforce our legal rights. We will bring legal action to protect New Yorkers, and we will fight to make sure every life is protected equally, because enough people have died and enough injustice has been done during COVID. It stops now. It stops with this vaccine.
Cuomo's remarks come as President Trump announced his intent to delay vaccine distribution in New York on Friday. UNICEF is helping in the race to get the vaccine out to the public. The organization hopes to store about 520 million syringes by the end of the year and secure more than 2 billion doses of the vaccine by 2021. The Vaccine Alliance is opening a distribution center in Denmark with the purpose of distributing the vaccine to the entire population. Helping those in need was at the center of a celebration by Pope Francis this weekend, the Mass honoring the World Day of the Poor, an observance that is meant to express the Church's closeness to marginalized people. While the liturgy was limited because of COVID restrictions, around 100 people in the pews were picked to represent the world's poor. Volunteers and representatives from charities were also in attendance. The Pope's message to help the marginalized leading to action in the Eternal City. Rome's official soccer team going from the pews of the Pope's Mass right out onto the streets so they can give bags of food to those in need. Christian Campos has that story.
One of the big teams from the Eternal City, AS Roma, is paying for the distribution of food packages on behalf of the Pope. Several members of the team's staff and directors attended the Pope's Mass on Sunday. The team also shared on their social media that the Pope signed a Roma jersey that will be auctioned for charity. Precisely after the Mass, many attendees received bags with food in the name of Pope Francis, given to them by other Italian institutions. Another of the Pope's gestures was this ambulance parked alongside the colonnade in St. Peter's Square. Here, homeless people were able to take a coronavirus test, undoubtedly a gesture that will provide a peace of mind for many during these difficult times.
That was Christian Campos reporting. Pope Francis has blessed a statue of Our Lady of the Miraculous Medal, kicking off its year-long pilgrimage throughout Italy. Starting on December 1st, the statue will make its way to many communities and parishes in hopes of bringing new devotion and faith to those affected by the pandemic. The statue was brought before His Holiness to mark the 190th anniversary of Mary's apparitions to St. Catherine Laboure. Still to come on Currents News, her family says she's the glue that's held them together for decades. Now they're celebrating a milestone that not even a pandemic could stop. We'll tell you all about it next. It's a birthday bash that not even a pandemic could stop. Marge Phillips is celebrating 100 years, crediting her family and her faith for her longevity. Currents News' Jessica Easthope brings us her story from Richmond Hill.
Thank you.
Margaret Phillips has spent her life giving back.
My mother would always take care of the neighbors who were sick. She would help them, and she would spend several hours with them twice, 2-3 times a week.
So it makes sense that on her 100th birthday, not even a pandemic could stop her friends and family from safely celebrating with her.
Hi. Hi.
Marge, as she's known to those closest to her, isn't taking her milestone birthday too seriously.
Don't feel any different than yesterday.
But she's the only one.
You have made an impact on everybody in this room.
Masked with excitement, the guests paid tribute to Marge, who has devoted her life to others.
We respect you so much, and we love you so much.
As for her secret to living this long, Marge was always on the go, finding creative ways to improve the world around her.
Painting the house and putting things together and using the workshop down in the basement.
All these years later, she's the glue that's held her family together. Though she's the one opening presents, the real gifts are what she has passed on to her family.
I got my calling from watching my mother all those years, taking care of people who were in need.
Marge has been a parishioner at Holy Child Jesus for as long as the church has stood in Richmond Hill. These days, church comes to her, but her faith is stronger than ever.
Well, it gave me stability, so I had something to fall back on if I felt bad.
I said you're very photogenic.
Her faith has gotten her this far, and she's confident it will take her to the next 100.
Happy birthday!
In Richmond Hill, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Happy birthday to you!
Happy birthday, Marge. You still look great. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.